Perfect fit closets. How to use tall modules. In today's session, we're going to talk about our tall modules that are stretchable and our regular tall modules. Please note that this is the exact same properties as a stackable module, and we have another video on just stackable modules. I've got my 2020 open. I've got a brand new design, and on the left-hand side underneath my local browser, I've got my Perfect Fit Canada Canadian catalog open. In our catalog, I'm going to double click our categories and into modules. And in our modules, we've got our stackable modules here, as well as our tall modules. Let's talk about our tall modules. We have a stretchable and a regular tall module. So this is what we'll be focusing on today. I'm going to click on the room layout tab, click on the continuous button, and create my room. Let's quickly create a reach-in closet that's 24 inches deep, let's say by 80 inches wide, and 24 inches deep again. So here's our example closet with 3 different placement areas, and we're going to subtract the placement area off wall number 2. We're going to click on our properties. We're going to select wall number 1, and in our type tab, we're going to deselect the placement area on the inside placement zone for wall number 1. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's put that back. We need wall number 1 and wall number 3. We can always add and subtract placement areas. Now that I have my placement zone for wall number 2, we're going to double click on the area, and now we have a split screen for the actual room. We have their elevation view on the top and our top view at the very bottom. Now, when we're designing this, we can design this a few different ways, and here's probably one of the easiest ways to kind of create your tall modules. There's several different ways that you can actually build this closet. Let's do the first way of having a tall module in the middle. We're going to have all shelves. We're going to have a tall module on the left, and we're going to use a stretchable one, and we'll use a tall module on the right for a stretchable. And these can be for our dresses and 3/4 inch long coats and a double hang on our left-hand side. So because we're having an odd number of modules, it's going to be easier for us to create a center module in the middle and then a module on the left and a module on the right. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a regular tall module. I'll tell you about the differences in just a moment. I'm going to grab a regular tall module, and we're going to give it some dimensions. We're going to give it a depth, a height, and a width. I'm going to drag it into my elevation view. As soon as I see my magnet, I'm going to go to my furthest working left and let go of my mouse. As soon as I let go of mouse, a new dialog box appears. I'm going to right click on the image so I can see the textured lines and see it a bit better. We use a 32mm European system, so the center of every line boring holes is 32mm, with the exception of the very top hole and the very bottom hole, where we have it 10mm from the edge to the first hole. Please note all line boring holes for the first hole is always going to be 37mm from the very front edge band to the middle of the hole. So just to recap, 10mm from the top to the middle hole and 10mm from the bottom to the middle hole, and then every hole in between is 32mm and 37mm from the front to the middle of the hole. We're using 5mm pilot drilled holes. We've got a default standard height of 83 15/16. The lowest that you can go is going to be 12 1/8, and that's the shortest. And the highest is going to be 107 7/8 as our tallest board. This is a solid one piece, and this is not 2 pieces. This is one full long piece. We'll keep it at the standard for now at 83 15/16. Once we actually have our dimensions for our height, we can have an applied back if we wish. We'll keep it backless, as most of the actual modules will be backless. We have a clearance on the left and clearance on the right. We're making a middle module, so the clearances do not apply. Next is opening 1. I can have one module with one opening, or I can have one module with multiple openings. We'll use one module with one opening. Next is opening depth. We have presets of 12, 14, 16, 19, and 24. But we can also custom to a 1/16 of an inch. We can go as depth of 8 inches, as shallow as 8 inches, but as deep as 30 inches. So those are the actual attributes that you can use for our modules. We'll keep it at the standard 14 inches. Next is opening 1 widths. We have presets of 12, 15, 18, 24, 30, and 36. Or again, we can go custom. as narrow as 8 inches, and as wide as 48 inches. I'm going to make this at 24 inches. Magic numbers will always be 18, 24, and 30 because a lot of our accessories that come from Häfele accept those specific numbers. So 18, 24, and 30 will always be magic numbers. And to anticipate making an actual module or in a master closet, you might want to make one to those specific widths. So therefore you can add some accessories down the road. I'll make this in 24 inches just for the time being. Panel on the left and panel on the right fully drilled. What that means is I've got line boring holes on the inside as well as the outside. So that means it's fully drilled. If I click on my panel on left to half drilled, I now have line boring holes on the inside, but I've also got a clean face on the outside. These are great for end panels. I can always remove the panel. If I'm ever sharing modules with the exact same depth, I can certainly share the panels. If they're different depths, I cannot share the panels. I can also have the panel not drilled. When we have a panel that's not drilled, we have no bored holes whatsoever. Regardless if there's a toe kick or a bottom shelf or a top shelf, there's no holes whatsoever. I highly recommend getting an extra fully drilled panel and using that as a stencil for your installation purposes. We're going to keep this one all fully drilled. Next is bottom shelf. We can have no bottom shelf and no toe kick, which I'll show you in just a moment. But for the middle, we're going to have a toe kick. So we're going to add drawers and shelves and so forth. So we're going to add a toe kick and we're going to add a bottom shelf. The toe kick, you could always increase it as well. This is a neat feature that we have built in. For those people that have high baseboards, or if they want to use this as a hidden compartment and so forth, whatever the purpose is, we can certainly increase the height. So now we have a 5-inch high toe kick, or we can have 6 1/4 inch toe kick. So you can see the properties like so. We'll keep this at the standard default height of 3 3/4. Once we have all our properties, so again, we're giving it our height, our depth, and our width. We're going to click on OK, and we're going to just drop this module anywhere in this area. We are now going to center this module. Currently highlighted is selected as my tall module. I'm just going to right click anywhere inside this tall module, and I'm going to left click center. I now have a plus as my new mouse cursor. I'm going to scroll down to my split screen and go to my top view. I'm going to double click my placement area. And this is where I want this centered. So I'm going to double click in this area. And now my module has centered. I can see the schematics that I have 27 1/4 on the left and right side. So it is fully centered. Next, we have to explain that we need to put in a tall module on the left and the tall module on the right. There's going to be 2 ways to actually do this. One, we can use the tall module stretchable, or we can use a regular tall module and give it exact specifics. So first, I'm going to show you both ways. Let's first show you how to use a regular tall module stretchable. With tall module stretchable, all I'm doing is I'm just filling in this gap here. As a designer and installation crew member, we always have to keep in mind about the installation team. Designers have to be aware that drywall is never straight or perfect and it's never plumb. So sometimes we will have bowing of the drywall. We can give this a 1/4 inch variance on the left and right wall to give my installers a little bit of play so that they can install the closet with ease. By giving it a variance, it helps the installation go much, much smoothly. I can also give this a 1 inch or greater variance and add a filler in there. So the installer would have to use a table saw and scribe it on site. I'm going to make this a 1/4 inch variance, and that's what most of our dealers do. I'm going to go ahead and click on my tall module stretchable. I'm going to left click and drag it into my elevation view. As soon as I see my mouse, I'm going to go to my furthest working left. So right about here is fine. I'm going to let go of my mouse. A new dialog box appears. I'm going to right click and do the exact same thing. Give it the exact height, which is 83 15/16. We want it at 14 inches deep. Panel on left is fully drilled. Panel on the right, we're going to subtract this panel. We have the exact same depth, so we're going to share the panel. I do want a top shelf, I do want a toe kick, and the toe kick's going to be 3 3/4. We're going to give this a 1/4 inch variance. And the easiest way to do that, I'm going to click on OK. The easiest way to give it a 1/4 inch variance, because I can go from left to right and fill in this gap. So if you can take a look, farthest left and farthest right. So I've filled in this gap, but I still need a 1/4 inch variance here. So the easiest thing to do is to drop it and place it a 1/4 inch from the left wall. That is the easiest way to do it. So left click, tall module, single, stretchable. I see my magnet, go to my furthest working left. I'll drop it once I see my magnet. Right click the illustration. I have 83 15/16 panel on the right. I'm going to subtract the panel. We're going to click on OK. And now we're going to place it a 1/4 inch in my placement area here. Wall left, we want this to be a 1/4 inch variance. I can type in 1/4, or I can type in 0.25. They both work. I'm now going to hit enter for a 1/4 inch variance. If we look closely, I have a 1/4 inch variance on the left wall, which is exactly what we want. Now that it's placed in there, all I got to do now is fill in the remaining gap. I'm going to right click on the tall module stretchable. And with the tall module stretchable, it has a new row item called resize width. I'm going to left click resize width, and from left to right, I'm just going to move my mouse over. So again, I'm just moving my mouse over, attaching it. I'm going to go halfway to the next module, left click, and drop. So now it has fully attached itself. So that is the first way to add a module in that small specific width. I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to show you the other tall module. If I use a regular tall module, I have to do a little bit of math. So this is 27 1/4 inches of space. Now, if I try to drop this in, it won't allow me to because it's very, very tight space. So first is we actually need an actual calculator. So I'm going to grab my Excel document here. I love using Excel. It does fractions as well as decimal points. So I have 27 1/4 inch of workable space. I know that I'm going to have a 1/4 inch variance. This is my total workable area. I have my 1/4 inch variance on the left. And I also have my equals 3/4 inches. So this is the size of my panels. So equals 3/4 inch panel. Oh, we didn't like that formula there. We'll just subtract equals. So now we have a 3/4 inch panel, a 1/4 inch variance on the left, and a total workable area. So equals the total workable area minus the 1/4 inch variance and minus the panel. We have 26.25. So that is the size of the current module. So to work in a module with the exact same measurement that I want to tell it I want 26 1/4. I'm going to left click my tall module. I see my magnet, go to my farthest working left and let go of my mouse. Now, I'm not going to give it any properties. I'm just going to click on OK, make it as narrow as possible, and we'll keep it the default 12 inches. We're going to click on OK, and now we're going to go to my placement zone and say that I want this a 1/4 inch off my left wall. Now that it's dropped, I've got a 1/4 inch clearance on my left. I'm going to right click the module, left click on my attributes. That brings me back into my variables tab. I'm going to go left click my variables tab. And again, we're going to just double check the properties. We're going to keep it at 83 15/16 as my height. The opening depth is going to keep it at 14 inches. The opening one width, we're going to left click on custom. Instead of making this 12 inches, we indicated that we needed to have it at 26.25 inches. I'm going to left click off screen, just in the gray area here to save the changes. And we're going to scroll down and we're going to subtract the panel on the right. We want the toe kick, we want the bottom shelf. We're going to click on OK. And now we've specifically given that module a specific size. The only reason why I had to do a two-step process is because it was such a narrow area and the program won't allow me for a 26 1/4 area because there's not a lot of space to work with. So those are the two different variances to use a stretchable versus a regular tall module. Let's use the same process on the right-hand side, but this time I'm going to use a stretchable one because sometimes it's just easier just to use the actual program and just to use a tall module stretchable. I'm going to left click my tall module stretchable. I'm going to drag and drop it once I see my magnet, go to my farthest working left right about here, and let go of my mouse. Right click the illustration. I'm going to subtract the panel on the left, but this time we're going to say clearance on the left and right. We're going to say that I want this a 1/4 inch clearance off the right side. So when I stretch the tall module stretchable from left to right, it's going to stop a 1/4 inch away on the right hand side. So I'm telling the program that's the variance that I want. We'll click on OK. On my elevation screen, I'm going to go to my farthest working left, halfway into the middle module, left click once, and go to my furthest right. And you can see that it's actually stopping me. It's actually got a stopper of a 1/4 inch clearance. I'm going to left click once, and if I zoom in, I now have a 1/4 inch variance on the right. The same thing will apply to my left as well. If I want to use the actual clearances, I can do that. If I take my tall module stretchable, I could drag it into my elevation view. Once I see my magnet, let go of my mouse, go to my farthest working left, right click the illustration, and this time I'm going to use a 1/4 inch clearance off the left side. Subtract the panel on the right, click on OK. Now go to my farthest working left, and you can see it doesn't go all the way. It's got a little bit, if you look at the bottom split screen, it has a little bit of a guide. I'm going to left click once, go to my farthest working right, left click once again, and it shifted everything. But if you look ever so closely here, it's got a line here. This is my guide because I'm working from left to right. This will confuse some people. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click the tall module stretchable, click on my attributes, because now that I have my 1/4 inch variance on my left hand side, I'm going to subtract this guide. I'm going to just move this over just ever so slightly so people can see. You can see the guide right here. It might confuse some people, so we're going to subtract that guide. The clearance on the left, we're going to subtract that clearance. We don't need it anymore because we've already dropped it. It works. And now the actual guide is gone. I've got my 1/4 inch variance, and that's how you would use the clearance on the right and clearance on the left. So a couple of different options. What's fantastic about 2020 is there are several different ways to create things. There is no one set way. Some designers will find it easier working on one way. Some designers will find it working on the other way. Really your preference. Let's design another reach-in closet. We'll go just a bit faster here. Click on our room layout tab. We'll click on continuous. We'll make a 24 inch deep by 80 inch wide and 24 inch deep system again. I'm going to right click on the wall, left click on our properties, and I'm going to deselect the placement zone off wall number 1. And I'm going to deselect the placement zone off wall number 3. We'll apply it OK. And double click the wall number 2 placement zone to create my elevation. We're going to do the exact same thing, and I'll show you a different concept. I'm going to left click my tall module, drag it in. I see my magnet and let go of my mouse, go to my farthest working left. I'm going to right click on the illustration. We'll make this one 24 inches wide. Click on OK. We're going to drop. We're going to right click, left click on center, and left click in the placement zone on my top view. So we're the exact same process. So let's go a little bit faster, and we're going to use the tall module stretchable for both processes. But this time, I'm going to subtract the bottom shelf and the toe kick for a specific reason. I'm going to left click my tall module stretchable. I'm going to drag it into my elevation. I see my magnet. I'm going to let go of my mouse. I'm going to right click the illustration. I'm going to make this a 1/4 inch variance off the left side. Subtract the panel on the right. I'm going to subtract the toe kick, and I'm going to also subtract the bottom shelf. So really, that's all it is. I got a 1/4 inch variance on my left. We're going to click on OK and go to my farthest working left, left click once, farthest working right, left click once again. I see my guide. I'm going to go back, left click on my attributes, and subtract my guide so that doesn't confuse us. Left click on variables and subtract my guide, go back to 0, and OK. My guide is now disappearing, and I've got my 1/4 inch variance on the left. So I've got the exact same tile module, just no bottom shelf and no toe kick. If you ever want to add your bottom shelf and toe kick again, you can certainly do so in attributes, or you can manually grab it in the parts list with a bottom shelf and a toe kick. I'm going to grab a tile module stretchable again. I see my magnet, go to my farthest working left and let go of my mouse. Once I see my dialog box, I'm going to right click the illustration. We'll do a 1/4 inch variance on the right, subtract the panel on the left, and subtract the toe kick and subtract the bottom shelf. We're going to click on OK. I've got my 1/4 inch variance, farthest working left, farthest working right, and now I've got my 1/4 inch variance. So what's great about this system is if your client is running out of room, this is a fantastic opportunity to subtract the bottom shelf and the toe kick so that you can have more room to work with. Let's go ahead and populate this. I'm going to go to my categories, parts, and I'm going to add a whole bunch of cleats to every single one of my tile modules. There are many different ways to create this, and we can do part by part. Go to my shelves, and we'll grab a fixed shelf and drop it in the middle. We'll drop another one in the middle here, and we'll grab another one like so. While we're here, we're going to grab a whole bunch of adjustable shelves, and we can certainly go up and down and move these around. We're just dragging and dropping. What's fantastic about these modules is that once your module is set in place, the parts will resize it. You don't have to give it any more dimensions. All it simply is just a drag and drop. So I always recommend take your time on setting up your modules. Once your modules are done, everything else is fairly easy. I'm going to double click on my categories, accessories, and rods. What I can do for the rods is I can go down 2 holes, and the same thing here, go down 2 holes. And now we can grab our line-to-line annotations and find out the exact dimension from the top of the rod to the bottom. So this will be my actual clearance. So we want to make that so that it's kind of even. So I'm just clicking on the part and moving it up and down. If you ever want to deselect something, I always recommend left clicking off screen and then reselecting your item if your item isn't selected. So now we have here a 38 and 39 inch clearance. So if we had the bottom shelf and the toe kick, we wouldn't have much clearance. You can get away with something like this because this is in a reach-in closet, usually for master bedrooms or for rooms that are in the open concept inside the room. I highly advise probably putting in a bottom shelf and a toe kick, and that's a great opportunity to hide things as well. And the same thing applies here. I have now more clearance because there's no toe kick on the bottom or the bottom shelf. Go down 1 hole, so we got to go down 2 holes. Perfect. So that's all we got to do is just got to make sure that everything is lined up perfectly. And this is one of the great reasons why we subtract the bottom shelf and toe kick, just to give it a little bit more extra clearance. Now let's show you one more example here. If I had a wall, room layout, continuous wall, let's just create one wall, let's say 100 inches. I'm going to double click my area. I've got my elevation view. Now, some tile modules might look like this as well. So I can do a tile module, and if I want, I can go ahead, drag and drop. I see my elevation view. I see my magnet. Go to my farthest working left. I'm going to right click the illustration. I'm going to make this one 30 inches. We'll make this at 14 inches deep. We'll make the panel on the left half drilled. We'll click on OK and drop. We'll put 0 inches from the left wall. Now I can drag and drop another tile module. Drop it as soon as I see my magnet. Right click the illustration, and this time I'm going to make this one 19 inches deep. So if I have this one 19 inches deep and I've got this one half drilled on both sides, you can see that I am not sharing the panel at all. A note is, if your panels are different depths, you cannot share these panels. You can only share the panel of their exact same depths. So that's another configuration that you can do. I'm just dragging and dropping, working from left to right. And we'll make this one 19 inches as well. We're going to subtract the panel on the left. And we'll make this one 24 inches wide. So you can see how we've actually combined these two. We've shared the panel. And in this section here, we haven't shared the panel because they're different depths. We can make another example here if you wanted to actually make this all equal. So let's just say that we have a 24-inch deep system, and let's say it's 160 inches wide, and we'll say 24 inches deep. A question that I get asked often, oops, that's 22 and 7/8. We're just going to go back, left click our properties, and we want this to 24 inches deep. Click on apply and OK. And we don't want anything on wall number 1. We'll subtract the placement zone there and the placement zone off wall number 3. So here's my elevation view. So people always ask me, can we make equal modules from the farthest left to farthest right? Absolutely. So here's kind of an example of how we would do equal modules and a basic formula. So the basic formula to having them equal modules is we're going to take the total width. We're going to minus any variances. So variance on the left, variance on the right. And then we're going to say our panels. So with 160 inches, I can probably put down about 4 or 5 different modules. If I say 160 inches, and let's say the maximum width that I want is 36 inches or 42 inches, that's the formula that we have to do. So let's just say that I want the maximum width to be 36 inches. So 160 inches divided by 36, roughly I can make 4.5 or even 5 modules equal sizes. If I want to make this in greater, let's say by 42 inches, I can have almost 4 modules. So let's make 5 modules. I like to have my modules a little bit narrower so that it's structurally sound. So I'm going to create 5 modules here. So my total width is going to be equals 160 inches. I'm going to have a variance of 1/4 inch off the left wall and 1/4 inch variance off the right wall. And I have, for our 3/4 inch panels, times, using the asterisk button on my keyboard, I have for 5 modules, I'm going to have 6 panels. So again, if I have 5 modules, I'm going to have 6 panels. If I have 6 modules, I'm going to have 7 panels, and so forth. So I'm going to have 6 panels for 5 modules. So now we're going to say equals the total width minus my variance on the left, minus my variance on the right, and minus all my panels. I have a total workable space of 155 inches. Now we can say equals 155 inches divided by 5 modules. Each module is going to be exactly 31 inches. So all I got to do now, and here's a quick tip. I can left click my tall module. We're going to drag it in. I see my elevation view. I'm going to see my magnet, go to my farthest working left, and left click and drop my mouse. I'm not going to add individual modules. I'm going to have one module with multiple openings. This is going to be nice and easy because they're all equivalent and they're all 31 inches. So now I've got one module. We're going to go to my placement zone, and on my wall left, I want this to be 1/4 inch off my left wall. I've dropped it. Now that it's dropped, now I can work from left to right. We're going to left click my attributes, right click on the illustration, left click on variables. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to keep it at the same height, 83 15/16. I'm going to say that I want 5 openings. So that's one module with 5 openings. Please give the program a little minute. Just look on your interactive mode on the left-hand side. Please don't touch anything else until you've seen all 5 changes. So we're waiting to see one module with 5 openings, and then we'll go down the list. Perfect. So now we've got one module with 5 openings. We're going to keep it at 14 inches deep. Opening 1 width. We're going to make this one custom. The next line populates, and we're going to type in 31. We'll do the same thing for opening 2 width. We're going to left click on custom, and we're going to say 31 inches. Same thing with opening 3, 4, and 5. So again, left click, opening 4 module, custom, 31 inches. And last but not least is opening 5 widths. We're going to click the drop down, select on custom, and hit 31. We're going to click on OK. So I've got all 5 of my openings, all custom and 31 inches. We're going to let the program do a little bit of work. I always let the program do a little bit of work. depending on your computer speed, your hardware, as well as your video card. It might take a little bit of time or it might take a long time. Once the modules are dropped in place, it's very easy to add parts. Perfect. So if my math is correct, I should have a 1/4 inch variance off my right and left wall. 1/4 inch variance there and a 1/4 inch variance there, and my math is correct. And now I've got equal sizes for all my modules. So that's something else you can do. So you can either do one module with one opening and keep repeating the process, or you can do one module with multiple openings. If you have any questions regarding our tall module stretchable, or a regular tall module, please contact us at support@perfectfitcanada.com.